So, we're ready for an introduction to practical ethics. You've all translated 4 sentences, 4 I asked you to translate. And the first one was, from the room in which I write. Please give it to me in a language I might understand. Spanish, anyone? En la que escribo yo. French, anyone? French? I'm not, oh, they've got a class. German? Yes? Ich schreibe. One person. Okay. What else do I know? How much? Catalan? I'm sorry. Chinese? First person or third person? First person. Good. Has anybody not used the first person here? Why would you not use the first person? Obvious. Stupid question on my part. I apologize. It may be safely assumed that 2,000 years ago. Did anybody delete it may be safely assumed? No. You're all going to have some kind of modifier, right? I hope. Before Caesar set foot in southern Britain, did anybody explain who Caesar is? No. Do you know who he is or was? Yes? A Roman general, an emperor, usurper, etc. Julius Caesar. Okay. The thin veil of vegetation was unaffected by man's industry. Did anybody delete man's industry? No. Why would you? Did people desex man? Thank you. In what language? Chinese, good. Spanish, pretty good. El hombre, yeah, okay, so you've got. And German? Mensch, okay, Mensch is sort of both. Okay, there is an interesting problem with sexism there, translating into English. We would perhaps prefer human industry. However, I put it to you that everybody here agrees on some very basic things about what a translation is. That's why I did the exercise, or you've done the exercise. We all agree that a first person is rendered as a first person, right? We all agree you don't take things away. If it says it may be safely assumed, you keep something in there for that. We sort of agree you don't add things unnecessarily. We're not going to explain who Caesar was if we think any normal reader will understand the reference, and probably better than we do. Now, what interests me here is that the example comes from a translation by the very famous Chinese translator Fu Yan, or Yan Fu. Do it? Okay. And this is the original English text. You recognize the elements that you've just translated. Okay, they're all there, and you rendered them as we would expect you to do. How did Fu Yan, Yan Fu, render them? Like this. I believe. I mean, I can't read the Chinese, but help me if it's wrong. What's the matter?
Different writers say it.
Sorry?
It's a very dated style.
Of course, the translations from the late 19th century. Yeah, late 19th century. So it's oldish. But it's in the third person, right? The author has become Huxley. The author is named. It's like someone commenting on the translation. We've got a case of explicitation. The Roman general. Caesar is explained. I hope. I'm relying on a back translation by a Chinese scholar. So. And there's a peculiar thing here. I mean, the syntax, the whole paragraph was being reworked. The translator has really invested a lot of effort and has taken a lot of risks. The more transformations, the higher the risk. And he's left out what seems to me a very key thing. Human industry was unaffected by industry. It's just omitted. at the end. Now, Yang Fu, is very famous in China for his 3 principles, right? One of which is eloquence, elegance, high language, high rhetoric. A feature of which I believe is a conversion of first person to third person. So that might explain that switch. I wonder, though, if it explains the others. When Huxley is writing criticizing the Industrial Revolution, the translation here comes out and doesn't want to investigate that criticism of industrialization, which is a peculiarly motivated omission. What interests me here, though, is that the translator working at that time, not very long ago, a little over a century, had a very different idea of what a translation is. That is, the translation form, evident here, is not the one we just used. Would anybody here translate like that today? No. Firstly, you're going to work too hard and not get paid adequately. We saw that last week. You're going to run unnecessary risks. And your readers would not expect it. There is a sort of implicit agreement between translators today, your clients, your readerships, that the translation form has certain key points, which I might find, and I haven't found. Good. They are, 1, you use the alien I. When a translator or interpreter says, I am tired, and they're translating or interpreting, the I is not the person speaking, but the person being represented. That's called the alien I. Okay? It's an interesting linguistic phenomenon, I think exclusive to translation, not in evidence in this translation. Okay? Secondly, your client and your reader will believe, unless there's evidence or reasons to the contrary, that your translation is sort of as long as the source text. More technically, a back translation, wait a minute, how can we put this? The idea is no addition, no subtraction. In the ideal case, you don't add, you don't take things away. This perhaps comes from the Bible. The Christian Bible has in it, in Isaiah, something like, thou shalt not add to or take away from the word of the Lord. Ooh. And authors are like God, perhaps, but anyway. No, this quantitative criterion really comes in the 20th century, late 19th, 20th century. Even in France, in the late 19th century, that's 1890s, I can find somebody, they translated the Russian novels into French. Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, these guys. Okay? And they were just too big. Tolstoy wrote these 3. And one French translator criticizes the other. He says, look, Tolstoy wrote 1,000 pages and your translation's only 350 pages long. And the translator writes back, in all honesty, and he says, tout le monde sait, everybody knows that those novels are too long for our tastes. Everybody knows you have to just give the good bits. And this is the late 19th century. Okay? The translation concept, or what I'm calling the Western translation form, wasn't in place there. Prior to, let's say, the mid-19th century, prior to the age of modernity, to give it a rough location, translation meant many different things. You could switch to the third person and produce a commentary. You could take out what you considered inappropriate. You could reorder things to make them sound elegant according to your target culture principles. And you could add things in as long as nobody found out. There's one famous translation into Spanish of Erasmus. This is in the period of the Reformation, Counter-Reformation. Erasmus was basically a Protestant thinker And they wanted his work to get into Spain, and he was very popular in Spain before the Catholic Church reacted against Protestantism, proto-Protestantism. So while it was still possible to publish Erasmus, who was a great Greek scholar and necessary for understanding the Bible at that stage, one of the translators, is Fernández de Toledo, put in all his own ideas in the middle of the translation. So the translation finishes up about 60% longer than the original. Not because he's just, well, he says, I'm elaborating, you know. No, he's putting in his own words so that he could preach Protestantism and not be accused. I didn't do it, I'm only the translator. The guy over there, up in Belgium, up in Flanders, he did it, not me. So many strange things, well, for us seem strange, were done in the name of translation. I'm interested in this Western translation form because I think that everybody, all the countries you come from, all agree on it. Prior to, let's say, 1850, all your cultures had very different concepts of translation. And now, after the age of modernity, into postmodernism, I suspect, we all agree on what a translation is. Would that be right? Does anybody think, no, here in Taiwan we have our own concept of translation? Or I'm very interested because I'll be saying this in China later this week, and I don't want them to crucify me. Okay. I'll be speaking to translation historians who are discovering the extreme diversity of translation concepts. You know, once you get into the history, it's fascinating how different, how it was conceived of in medieval Java, what the Persian concepts were. The history of translation concepts in China is wonderfully diverse. But that extreme diversity these days has come down to one. And I want to know why. But not here. What interests me now is the ethics that we have for translation within that historical context. Ethics of a profession is often called deontology, especially in Romance languages. And deontology would be rendered back into English as a code of ethics. Okay? There's a kind of ethics which is about human virtue, you know, what it is to live a good life. But in our field, we're really talking about how you do a good job, how you exercise your profession well. Okay? And the codes of ethics that we have and that have been formulated tend to come from the profession, the practice that's there. And that's a tradition. It's inherited. We don't know where or how it happened, but we've all inherited the same idea of what a translation is, and that's what we build our ethics on, whether we like it or not. It can be changed by people theorizing. I'm going to give an example in a minute, and by academic institutions, why not? And it can be changed also by changes in social ethics. Different practices become legitimate or illegitimate with history, and that's going to impinge on what we do in the translation and interpreting professions. Okay? So from those three sources, we do get codes of ethics. I'm going to look today at the Code of Ethics of the American Translators Association, which is the one most immediately available to us. But then we're going to discuss a problem that the Code of Ethics now faces, and the translation form now faces, which is the question of volunteer translation. Volunteer translation, volunteer interpreting, and very interesting, volunteer subtitling. Because volunteer subtitling, if you're into these crazy Japanese films that have all the stuff on the web, break all the rules of the translation form and go back to many of the wonderful things that were done prior to modernity. So there's a question of how our ethics, on which we all agree in practice, because we've just proved it, are going to adjust to a particular challenge that's coming to us. Ethics there's an article by Andrew Chesterman which I put there if you're interested. It's a bit too theoretical for what we're doing here. Chesterman suggests that ethics deal with many different questions. For us, it's a question of representation. Are we representing the text, so there's an ethics of truth there? Are we serving the client well? And are we loyal to our readership? So there's a question of loyalty and service. Can our client trust us? And can we trust the client? This goes back to what I was saying last week. You remember about us lying to each other all the time, but are we within the limits of little white lies where we can more or less trust each other? And Andrew Chesterman believes in an ethics of communications, that we should be enhancing communication. I have trouble with that concept, but we'll get to that in a minute. I don't know what understanding is. That's another problem. Let me move to the ATA, the American Translators Association. Now, when I gave this lecture 2 years ago, their code of ethics began like this. As a translator or interpreter, a bridge for ideas from one language to another and one culture to another, I commit myself to the highest standards of performance, ethical behavior, and business practices. Sound good? Yeah, it sounds good. One of my best jokes 2 years ago was, why do you want to be a bridge if people are going to walk over you? Huh? And I would look at this and say, well, I commit myself. Isn't it like a religious, becoming a monk or a nun? I'm shredding my worldly and entering, to commit oneself to an ideal, like to becoming a bridge, seems a rather peculiar thing to do. Okay. It's certainly based on the notion of sacrifice or self-abnegation. Okay. However, that's how it was. It's not like that anymore. Unfortunately, my best jokes are no longer valid. Hold on, wait a minute. Yes, okay, I'll come to what it is now. It went on. I will endeavor to translate the original message faithfully to satisfy the needs of the end user or users. And I had a great time analyzing this sentence. I mean, if you're translating faithfully, you follow the text, right? But if you're satisfying the needs of the end users, could be your client and or readers and or audience that's listening to you, you're looking that way. So how can you, in the one sentence, satisfy both partners? Look that way and that way at the same time. They seem here to have picked up traditional ethics, the kind we all agree on. If it's in the text, it's in the translation. No addition, that's faithful, right? But then added on, we've got to think about the end user, so you can change things perhaps. And you've got two clashing principles within the one sentence. The code of ethics struggles to resolve that. It sort of leaves you on your own to sort that one out. Faithful to what in the end? And then the code went on to a list of things that you have to do to satisfy the client, okay? To attain this level of excellence, which is somewhere above you, by definition, you have to do all these things. Not one word about what the client has to do for you, by the way. It's very much a one-directional ethics of sacrifice. Okay, it goes on to those things. You're going to look at them a bit later. Now, I've done it again. I've done it again. I've done it again. Can you go in, you've got a link on iLearn, or we'll do it here together, and we'll go and see what's happened to the ATA Code of Ethics since this happened, okay? We'll go back and find the ATA Code of Ethics. Is it there for you? And you'll see that they've destroyed my entire lecture by changing it. It now begins. We, not I, we, it's a collective. We, the members of the American Translators Association, accept as our ethical and professional duty. No, I commit myself. No pseudo-religious sacrifice. 1, to convey meaning between people and cultures faithfully, accurately, and impartially. And where's the end user? Where's the client? Where's the reader? Where's the Scopos? It's all disappeared. Perhaps they saw my lecture from 2 years ago. I don't know. Other people, deconstructionist Rosemary Orochi has also criticized the ATA Code of Ethics. So what's happened to the Code of Ethics is it's retreated, sort of experimented with this Scopos thing, change it for the client, different purpose thing, and now it's gone back to what's safe. Don't mix it up. What is safe is faithful, accurate, impartial. Okay? But I think that's sort of what we prove, that we, in practice, do use that default ethics. And all my best jokes are no longer any good, so I have nothing but praise, I guess, for the ATA Code of Ethics. When you go through it, though, and you read these principles, there are 8 of them. Okay? Something rather peculiar happens. The first one, I agree, it concerns meaning and conveying meaning. That's sort of what we do. That's the translation, interpretation, localization, all that stuff. We all do that, I guess, at some stage. But look at the others. I suggest to you that they don't really concern our profession. They concern any service profession as such. Yep. To hold in confidence any privileged or confidential information. Yeah, sure. That does happen all the time. Not all the time, but, you know, key points. It's happened to me. But I can't tell you about it. Yeah. So confidential information, right? You're like a priest, I guess, in that respect. And there's all sorts of ethical implications you could draw out there. But it's not specific to translation, surely. Number 3, to represent our qualifications, capabilities, and responsibilities honestly. Well, we saw that economics theory disagrees with that, but as an upfront principle, you know, believe my curriculum if you have no reason not to. But that's any job you get, surely. To enhance those capabilities at every opportunity through continuing education. True enough. But this you'll find in any profession that's changing at a rapid historical pace. Okay? It's also here because the ATA members require points to retain their membership, and you get points by attending training seminars or paying a lot of money and going to the ATA conference, which is coming up soon. Is anybody going? Good. So get some points. Oh, just an aside, this is a couple of years ago. We were discussing the ATA conference. How much does it cost? It is expensive.
For students, $170.
Oh, okay, but then you've got to get a hotel for a couple of days. And okay, no, she worked out what it costs to be an ATA member over 10 years. Okay, and attending courses and all the conference, because you attend the conference, you don't have to do the training courses. And then what the masters cost here. Okay, which was cheaper? The masters here. Yeah. I mean, no, she put in all the costs of the transport, the taxi and the meals and the hotel, the conference and the membership fees. Anyway, so it's not too bad. Anyway, that's my gloss on It's service training. To act collegially by sharing knowledge and experience. This is a new one, and it's very interesting. To act collegially by sharing knowledge. When you're in business and you're competing for a translation job, you are, or interpreting, you are each other's rivals. Okay? And that sense of competition is what keeps American capitalism great, I'm led to believe. And yet here, collegially, I mean, this is new, it's come in from somewhere. And I can only guess where. First, there has been a debate within the field of translation technology with respect to translation memories. And who owns the translation memories? You know, as you translate, you produce databases. You had segments. At the beginning, you could keep them. They're on your hard disk. That's yours. These days, with web-based technologies, they go straight to the client, and they belong to the client. And there was a movement among translators to share databases, okay, on a voluntary basis for the good of the profession, to make your databases publicly available. I don't know if that's still a flying cause, but there was that debate, and it was considered ethically laudable to share your database with the profession, or to put your databases online. What happened to it was Google got onto the idea, and other companies as well now, and start to say, share your database, but it belongs to us. They give it to us and we'll share it with the world, which is actually what's happening. Anyway, that whole sharing knowledge and experience has come into the professional ethics, I think, because of the impact of volunteer translators. Because of the sharing technology, Web 2 technology, interactive, collaborative translation, where many groups these days are using translation as part of their group experience. This is not the traditional image of the classical translator alone at night with the author and the text and the candle, thinking things. It's new and interesting, and I think an adjustment to volunteer translation. 6, define in advance terms of business. Well, hey, that's just any business. If you don't do that, you're in trouble. I would add, if it's a big translation job, get a contract signed. Every translator I know has had trouble getting paid with at least one client. And I don't mean getting paid well. I mean getting paid. Hey, but I live in Spain. Anyway. Due recognition of our work, compensation commensurate with our abilities. Sounds very good, but this is where we get into the trouble with volunteer translation. Can you work for nothing in that case? And that's the moot point. And then 8, to endeavour in good faith to resolve among ourselves any dispute that arises from our professional interactions. I wonder what that means. Don't talk about this code of ethics to people outside the association. Perhaps. It is, however, an appeal to collegial activity, which fits in with the call for sharing knowledge and experience, I suggest. Okay, that's the code of ethics that we've got. I don't think it should be entirely alien to you. It's not something that is outrageous in any way. And it does fit in, I think, with the Western translation form, with exactly the kind of translation you just did. Stick to the text. If something's in the ST, something's in the TT, don't mess around. Now, our problem is that we are invited to attend a talk on the 22nd of October by the CEO of this website called Webflakes. The link is on iLearn. And he is interested in presenting his project which allows you to translate for free. And it was proposed to me that we have a translation practicum course, that the translators in that course volunteer to translate for this website for free. And I don't know what to do. I have an ethical problem. Should I allow you to translate there for free, or should we not? And I propose to you in the second half, we're going to try to answer that problem, try to solve it in two ways. We have a reading to do, the text by McDonough. Who has not read the text? I mean, you know, read over it quick. Okay, very good, very good. See if she can help us with this problem. And then the other thing we have is the ATA Code of Ethics. We could go back to that piece by piece and see if they can help us with this problem. And then at the end of the class, we are going to vote on this ethical dilemma, to which there are only two answers perhaps. If we can find a third way, that would be interesting as well. Okay? Whether or not to accept the offer from Webflakes, and then when the CEO comes here, you might have enough information and knowledge to massacre him. Okay, we've got 12 minutes. Good. Let's look at the McDonough text, if you've got it there, and the questions we had on it. Or should I just leave you 12 minutes to answer the questions on that text? Would that be okay? All right? Off you go. Use the 12 minutes and then you have a break. Look at the questions on the McDonough text, which I hope it's not there. Worksheet. Yeah, it's just called worksheet. I know, but I added question 5.
Okay.
Also, have you all done it before coming here?
Do you have the questions?
If not, those are the quick questions. They're sort of yes-no questions. But question 5 says, would McDonough recommend that you translate for Webflakes? And then why? And that's going to require some thought and discussion, which I invite you to do in groups of 2, 3, 4, or 5. If you'd like. Any questions?